officially recording right now, so let's go ahead and start this.
Hey, speak into the mic.
Yeah. Yes, talk into the mic.
I'm just saying.
That's what they're for.
Oh wait, that's what they're. Oh
yeah,
shit!
that's why we have them. That's why we have them, dude.
So you got that spit guard because you spit everywhere in the console.
I do.
You disgusting.
Fucking rainmaker over here.
That's disgusting.
Episode 3, let's go. Let's get it.
All right, well, hey guys, welcome to Iron and Think, episode 3. I'm Colin here with Jeff and Alec, and we received some questions for you guys. Yeah, cheers, bang. So I love those things. Yeah, so we thought we'd start this episode off with some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and fire them off from a couple listeners. Here we go.
Yeah, real quick before we get into the questions, just so you guys know, as the podcast grows and people are opting into it, email us at podcast@ironandfitness.com, and you can say whatever you want. It's free game. Don't be a dick and just be rude. But if you have any comments or concerns, topics you want us to cover, any guests, maybe ideas, where you want things to go, let us know, because we're open to shit. So we got a couple here, though.
No, it's an organic process, so definitely like getting listeners involved for sure. So our first question today, Jeff, for you, is from Brandon Hills.
Oh, my dog. Yeah. What up, Brandon?
Right. He won a bag recently.
He's asking, what was...
He won a duffel bag.
Oh, he did?
He actually was the dude in the contest that won the duffle bag.
Won the duffel.
Oh,
and by the way, we're going to have more contests. We're going to do that like probably every other week or
every
something.
day.
Every day. Just free shit.
Yep.
That's how you make money.
Yeah,
every
right.
day.
The brand is growing. No, you just give shit away.
Yep. All right, well, here we go.
Yep.
Brandon's first question is, what was your first setup like for screen printing T-shirts?
First setup, actually, well, this is pre in-house when I was doing everything. I had a company in Minneapolis that, again, this is what we don't do now. What I hated, it was like outsource to outsource. So the company would then order my product for me, get it screen printed in another state by a bunch of union workers that don't give a fuck about the product or the quality, ship it back to the shop, then inspect it, and then sell it. So there was a lot of areas, and it's happened actually when I was working with them when I first started that, the red doesn't match the red of the ink, on the sleeve, and the shirt just looked like shit.
A little schmutz on the shirt's okay.
Little schmutzy. Yeah, it just turned out bad. So then when they pump out a certain amount, they're not doing quality control like we do here, where, basically we get the product, we screen print it, we bag it, tag it, and it goes to the customer, and there's no like middleman in between. So that's why I'm pretty proud of that. I think a lot of people don't realize that your clothing that you wear, and even that you see at big department stores or anywhere, it gets handled by a lot of fucking people. So when you can kind of bring that number down, it's going to be a little bit better quality. So but that's where we started, but now it's all in-house. So, I mean, not to repeat myself from other episodes or if you're just tuning in, but we do it all here under one roof. So we screen print, we bag it, we tag it, we ship it all ourselves, 100% us. So,
kind of a follow-up. Are you willing to divulge over the podcast what brand you used to start out?
God, I don't even know the original brand, but I mean, not to like... at the end of the day, I feel with people and clothing brands, there's not a right or a wrong. It's just more of staying consistent with what you sell. So if you have a basic T-shirt, and you print, 10 to 15 different designs, but your shirts all fit differently, you really can't do that. There's different blends that you can use, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's what you like, and then what your clientele will kind of opt into, and then you go from there. And there's certain brands that I like that they print on like super thick old school Gildans, and they're a big name streetwear brand, and I still support them, but we use more of a softer blend. But it's a process of figuring it out on your own, man.
It's all trial and error, straight up.
100%. I mean, when I first started, I had it was like a real thin t-shirt, and it didn't hold the ink as well, and it's just actually liking clothing, diving into it, and like really knowing about different garments, blends, cuts, how they feel. And again, there's no right and wrong. It's funny how people always ask, like, well, what do you use? Because then they just want to copy what you do. It's like, I had to figure it out. So, do it on your own, figure it out, and then, you'll kind of go from there. So,
yeah, and that's, his other kind of follow-up questions are actually exactly what we talked about on episode 1.
Okay.
Going to that story. So we got another question here then from Tyler Adams. And
what was the other things he said, though, real quick?
The other things that Brandon said?
Yeah. What was the other two?
How did you get your name out there? Would you ever consider doing like a tutorial? And how did you do the design templates that fit your shirts?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess basically, like, how did you do it? Like,
which is what we talked about.
Yeah, we talked about in episode 1, but sometimes people aren't going to, they might have not said or listened to episode 1, but basically, like a DIY tutorial, I would say no, absolutely not. Because it's just kind of like, that's the part of enjoying what you do is figuring this shit out. Because if it's just given to you and it's easy day, then just everyone's going to do the same shit. So I feel like to put a positive twist or to answer that correctly is just figure it out. You know, you're going to fuck up a ton. And that's cool. That's the fun part is like, whoops, that batch of shirts looks like dick, so we got to do a new batch or something, you know? And that's, you got to learn to enjoy those moments because then when you do, you realize that certain things are starting to fall into place a lot quicker and more frequently, and it's just a better experience all around, man.
Well, and it's also a process that's not like oh, hey, we have a design, we're gonna print all this shit today. It's a weeks and months of planning
potentially, yeah,
that go into it. So a tutorial would take a hot minute, and there's so many steps that go into it. So it would, it's a long, everyone just sees the final product. They don't see the beginning to end, and it's not a quick little one day thing that happens.
And that's why we're doing like our YouTube videos and like behind the scenes of what we do here at the warehouse. But not every brand's gonna give you all the secrets. So it's kind of, I would just say trial and error, man. That's the best way to do it.
Well, you guys kind of just answered part of Tyler Adams' question, and
shout out to Tyler. What up, dog?
Yeah, he wanted to hear your thoughts and experiences on growing a successful brand, which you guys are starting to just touch on here.
Yeah, is that the question? Just
that was the question.
Yeah, so. I mean, I think he was saying something too about a saturated market, and I kind of look at it like, well, anything you do is saturated. I play music in a band. There's a million bands. There's a million clothing lines. So I just think when you take something, it's about more branding. Branding is very, very important. Like, how are you, your logo, the name of the brand, and then what you're doing with that logo and name and how you're branding it. Because then from there, it trickles into everything else. I feel a lot of times people just, they rush it. They like slap something on a t-shirt and they're like, that's my brand. And it's like, no, there's a lot more avenues you got to look at. So I think that's how you stay above a saturated market is just having good product, constantly doing that consistency and making sure that your brand awareness is really, really strong. Because strong brand awareness is gonna really kind of push you over the edge compared to just the average Joe. So
then having passion for your product, believing in actually what you're doing, because that's something that's very prevalent when you do actually believe in what you're doing, and people see that. So
well, it's like, would I wear it?
Yeah, exactly. It's no, I don't like that. So why would you make it if you're not gonna? For sure. And living your brand, which I'd say it makes sense. You're like, oh, okay, Iron and Ink Fitness. Yeah. Not a big old dude and no tattoos and just okay, I see it. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
The two questions of the day.
They were. So, like we said, guys, you can go ahead and send that to podcast@ironinc.fitness.com. Yep. We'd love to hear your feedback and comments and questions, and we'll kind of make that a habit and, start off by doing shows like this. So I think that'll be great to get people involved.
But, the more questions, the better. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so on to today's topic. So, throughout the podcast, we're going to touch on a lot of things, and some of those things are going to be uncomfortable things. And today's topic is actually, kind of a follow-up, Alec, to a video that you did, where you talked about kind of substance abuse, anxiety, and dealing with depression. So I thought, let's do an episode on mental health, and that's kind of what we talked about before the show. You've been vocal on dealing with it in the past, so Alec, I kind of want to start this whole thing off with you and getting your story, just so we can tell the people.
We can do that. Yeah. I think I did my video when I was 11 months sober. I'm a year and a half now, and when I first, thank you. Yesterday.
That's sick.
Yeah. And when I did my video, it was more of I kind of told why I was sober. But I didn't really get into the details of, really what brought me to my sobriety, and kind of the background to growing up and everything, that kind of everything evolved into my hot mess of a life that I was living at the for a while. And as over time and I've become more vocal, people have really kind of asked me questions on why exactly, what brought you to the point of realizing, oh shit, it's time for you to make a change in your life. And especially nowadays, I think mental health is, there's such a stigma attached that we've talked about many times, where people don't like to talk about it, and I don't exactly know why. I think people are scared to talk about it, and they look at, like, if you meet someone or you hear something, oh, so-and-so's depressed, or they have OCD or whatever, they kind of look at you like it's frowned upon, like there's something wrong with you. And I think that's ridiculous. It's so there. I don't exactly know the statistics, but I know a lot of people have these issues. And like we talked before, we're not medical professionals or anything like that, so these are just our personal stories and things that we've done to better ourselves. But it was weird growing up. I was the happy-go-lucky, making people laugh, all that. And
it's kind of what you are now.
Yeah, a little bit. So, and but when things started to evolve for me, it was actually my first day of 6th grade. So I was like 11. I don't know. What are you, like 11 years old then? Yeah, something like that. 12. And I went to a small elementary school. There's only like 250 kids. And the middle school that I was going into is actually the second largest middle school in the nation. I think there's like 3,000 kids. It's crazy. So it's like a bunch of middle school or elementary schools that funnel into one. And I woke up that morning and everything was fine, getting ready to go to school. And I remember it was ready. I was getting ready to go to the bus, and all of a sudden I just like froze. I don't know. I felt this wave of emotion that I've never experienced in my life. It was like, growing up, you're nervous like for sports games and all that, and it's normal, and you just work through it. You're like, once you start doing things, it's gone. And it was this basically like crippling emotion that I was going through. And my parents were like, oh, you need to go, you're gonna miss the bus, all that. And I just couldn't. I like seriously like froze, could not move. And my anxiety that I've always dealt with originates in my stomach. So when I get like super nervous, I would always like vomit.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Sure. And it was just gnarly. And that was my first experience with what is now called anxiety.
Sure.
And it was weird, especially being 11 years old. You don't know what's going on,
right?
And so it's scary. And luckily, I had an incredible group of people at the school that started working with me. I actually would go into school like 30 minutes before school started, just so I could be there, get acclimated to everything before the rush of students came in and everything. And I think for a while I started to get a somewhat good handle on it. And of course, like most people do, they go, I got actually diagnosed by a doctor and I got put on medication, and that happened for a while. But as you get older, your body starts to grow. You grow out of medication just like anything else. So I had to re-up on doses and things like that. But as I got out, I think I was pretty good with all that throughout middle school. I had episodes and everything that were a bit difficult, and then I got into high school, and that's when things kind of started going downhill for me. Most of the time, people that suffer from anxiety, depression comes in hand. It's kind of a they go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And that's when things started to get bad for me, was in high school. And I grew up playing hockey. That was always my outlet on things that I did. And it got to the point where that completely affected me playing hockey. And when basically you're doing something that you've loved your whole life and you just don't give a shit about it anymore.
That's not good.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And so, things started to become an issue for me. I started missing school. I started acting out. I started drinking at like a young age. Like
high school?
Like high school. Like I started like actually like, I mean, everyone kind of dabbles in it.
I feel like nowadays, since we're older, like that's like norm, which is so fucked. But I didn't even start drinking until I was a senior.
Yeah.
Which to people that's like they're like, oh dude, that's so late, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely not that we're encouraging.
No. I was just busy in sports.
Yeah.
I was just busy. Like I was just doing shit, and I was just always occupied. So I was like, oh yeah, there's drinking at this house party. Oh, I guess it's here, and you just kind of didn't know. It's all guilty by association.
Oh,
who you hang out with, you know. So
yeah, and I think I had my first drink when I was like 14 years old, and I think I knew that this is bad because I don't know if saying enjoying it is the good word to use, but I just felt this like attachment to it in a way. Like it kind of had a hold on me. And throughout the years I drink and everything, but things really got bad my junior year. We had some family stuff going on, and I self-medicated with alcohol. That was my go-to thing. So I guess digging deeper into it, it was my junior year, and my depression had become so terrible that I wasn't eating anymore. I think my junior year in high school, I was like 135 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was that mixture of, I felt like if I'd eat, I'd go to school, I'd get so worked up that I'd puke. And that was something about like puking in public was just the worst thing ever to me.
Oh yeah.
Like it was just a terror. So I wouldn't eat, and slowly, I'd go days and days without eating, and my body would just start eating away at my muscles because I just was craving nutrients. I seriously, like, I looked at pictures and it's bad.
Damn.
Like I looked, like it was really, really bad. And I filled that void with drinking, and I got to the point where I was like, I remember the exact situation where I was like sitting in my bathroom and thinking, this is how I have to live for the next 60, 70 years. It's like, no way. Like I couldn't possibly think that I could make it, like live this life. It was the most miserable thought that I've ever had, was how am I possibly going to survive? Like, how can I do this? It just, there's no possible way that I can continue. And I started contemplating like suicide. Like, there's no way I can continue this life. And I just wanted all of this hurt and this pain and everything to go away. So I kind of planned it out. I knew my parents were leaving town I think my mom was running like a half marathon in her hometown. It was just me and my brother. And my parents didn't drink at all, so they had like a liquor cabinet of nothing that was ever touched and everything. And I was like, I'm just going to drink. And I think I took like some sleeping pills and shit like that. And I drank, and I was like, I'm just going to drink until I fall asleep. And that was luckily, obviously, I'm still here today, but but that was my first time. What's the right word to use? Mental facility. It was for people 17 and under.
Who found you when you were?
My brother
Neil?
did. Yeah, Neil. And it was a nightmare. It was really, really bad. And my parents came home, and they, luckily my parents are pretty well connected in the medical field, so they call them beds open. I was able to get into this facility and everything. And to be honest, I think being there was probably did more harm than good.
At the hospital,
At the hospital?
Right. No, not at the... It's at an institution,
yeah.
Right, is what you were saying?
Yeah, it was an inpatient. It was an inpatient, so I actually physically had to stay there. I couldn't go home or anything.
Gotcha, okay.
And I think that did more harm than good because of the horrible shit that I saw there. Like, I saw, like, a 6-year-old try to commit suicide because he... I mean, do we want to get deep? Like,
let's go deep.
Do we want it?
That's what we're doing.
All right.
See these mics?
Yeah.
See this table? See that guy? We're going deep.
It was sad. I was one of the older kids there, so he...
At 17, correct?
No, I was 16 at the time. And so he kind of like hung around me and everything. And I was like, he was 6 years old. So I was like, kind of like under the wing. Yeah.
You're like his brother or father figure type thing. Yeah.
And he was in there because his, like a depression thing, his father was sexually assaulting him. Yeah. And for some reason, the place that I was at didn't kind of vet everyone that came in, and his dad came and visited him while he was there. And he lost his mind, and he like we did like occupational therapy, so we did like arts and crafts and shit like that for like an hour a day or whatever. And he stole like a pair of scissors and hid it and slit his wrist in the while he was there. And seeing that, like a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's not something you forget. Right. It's not something you forget. And also just sitting around with these young kids telling their stories and the lives that they've lived up to this moment, people that you can't even see the skin on their arms because they're so covered in scars, and you just sit there and you're just like, what the fuck? How do you rationalize all this thinking? I'm a 16-year-old kid hearing all these awful things that have fucking happened to them, and I truly think it did more damage than good.
Yeah.
And I spent like 2 weeks there and then got out, kind of did the same old bullshit. When you're dealing with that and, alcohol and all that, you become very manipulative.
Not to cut you off real quick, but how did you get out? So what is there, like
just
a
time,
rule? They give you like a 2-week window. They're
basically,
like, okay, you seem a little better.
Or they evaluate you and they're like, oh, you're good. So fucking
check box.
So here you go. Yeah, we checked the boxes. Here you go.
Okay.
And I was there for like 2 or 3 weeks. Got out and kind of just because I did. I told everyone what they wanted to hear and all that shit. Yeah. Got out and it was my senior year. Slowly but surely fell back into my old patterns. Was drinking a lot. And actually, I didn't play hockey my whole senior year because I was just...
What did your friends think? Were they kind of
That's a good question, yeah.
On what was going on?
They didn't say shit.
You know why?
They never did.
I was just going to answer that for him. I was like, I think back to when I was in high school, at that age, and it's like, kids are so fucking lost.
Yeah.
And like we all were at that time. And it's like in different levels, kind of what we're talking about with mental illness or what's going on in our heads, but just at that age you're so naive to shit and you just don't know.
Yep.
So like if I always was like, if I was friends with you, I'd be like, hey man, you okay? Like simple just asking questions, but yeah, it's like, dude, you're so young.
Well, I think that's part of the reason, and I want to do an episode on this later, about the school system, and they don't teach kids.
Wait.
Yeah, they don't teach kids, I think, the right questions to ask, because like you just said, it's, hey, are you okay? Great. And if like they tell you that they have a problem, like how are you supposed to process that?
What the fuck are they going to do about it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
are they going to be like, oh, darn. So, I mean, I think that really needs, honestly, that should be a core program.
Yeah.
100%.
How to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's for another time.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And it was one of those... It was one of those things where, and you just, I'm good. Yeah, they don't even. I think it's a point where they don't really give a shit, or they just don't know what to do.
I think it's a combo.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both.
I really believe it's they don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do.
But a lot of the times, there's superficial relationships, just like in all phases of life.
Yeah, and it was, and growing up, I never had like core group. I spent time with the guys I played with, hockey and everything, but it was never like a real good, solid relationship with these people. It was just, people that you...
I just think, not getting off topic, but I think with that being said about like core groups of friends or people, I think a lot of times people just give a shit about their own shit. Well, yeah. And it's kind of like people... You definitely want to care about your own beliefs and feelings, but I mean, I was always cool with everyone in high school, and then college I had a group of friends, but I was always open-minded. That was the main thing for me, is like, if this dude's a goth guy wearing guy liner and a fucking trench coat in high school, I still said, what up, dude? Yep. Like, I'm more curious, like, what makes people tick. And then, dude, I had buddies in college I literally went from high school to college with, and I never talked to them anymore. Yeah. And small group is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And for me, because I was so miserable with who I was as a person, I masked my insecurities and how miserable I was with being a fucking asshole. So I think I played that part really, really well.
Right.
And so, when I showed up back to school, it was just same old. I was like, I know how to put this face on. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really think anyone really thought anything else. They're like, oh, you've been gone for 3 weeks. What have you been doing? I made up some bullshit excuse or whatever.
Right.
And
especially in such a large school.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm sure.
Yeah. And senior year rolled around, and it got to the point where it was so bad. Yeah, I didn't play hockey anymore. Yeah. And that was something that I did from 3 years old all the way up. Played, winter, summer, everything. It was my passion, and I stopped because I was so physically and mentally unwell that I just couldn't do it. And I remember, I think so it was close to graduation. I remember having a conversation with my parents about college. They're like, well, you're not ready to go to college. And of course, being a 17-year-old kid, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to college.
Good.
What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And they're like, no,
everything.
We're not gonna financially, help you go to school. And of course, I got super fucking upset about that. So going into graduation, I knew, like, okay, well, what the fuck am I gonna do now?
Right.
And it's funny, shit always went down when my parents were gone. So they left again. It was just me, my brother again at home. I had some people over. Got all turned up.
Did you have a rager, bro?
Just had a rager. Got all turned up.
Oh, boy.
And something in my head, I just flipped a switch. Kicked everyone out of my house. And I just lost my mind. I did $50,000 of damage to my house. Oh my I just, God. Incredible Hulk, just fucking just blowing shit up and whatnot. And my poor brother.
Neil.
And I remember I ripped my my closet. I have a swing closet door, and I ripped that shit off the hinges. And we have at my house, we have a really nice wooden front door with glass and shit. And I remember holding that, and I was pounding trying to break the door. And next thing I know, fucking door gets kicked in. I get tackled by 3 cops and shit, and I got blood all over me because I cut my arm, and my whole arm was covered in blood and shit. And yeah, my brother called the cops because what else are you gonna do? I'm fucking tearing shit up at home. And that was boom, my next off to the hospital again. Alec goes. I got put on a 72-hour hold, which is 72-hour hold is if you're suicidal intentions, all that. They monitor you for 72 hours.
Make sure. In a room, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, after 72 hours, you'll be good.
Yeah.
And then see you later.
Yeah.
Oh, my parents were so pissed off. So I've never seen I've seen them more pissed off. A couple times, but they were upset because of just the day, and they showed me pictures, and I just was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's almost like, did you black out in a way?
Oh yeah. I don't even know.
Don't even remember doing that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And that was my second back to the same facility, and I was almost 18, so they thought it would be better to put me with the adults and talk about scary as shit. Being in an adult mental facility.
So it's like the same thing you did when you were younger, just for older.
For
18 and up.
18 and up. But yet I wasn't 18 yet. But they thought, oh, you're going to be 18 in a few months. You might as well.
You like made the cut.
Yeah, you made the cut. So here you go.
Yeah.
And I'm talking real fucked up shit. Like people, you know, classic, like you see people suffering from mad mental illness. You see them on like TV movies. That's what take that times like 10. Like it was bad. And I remember I did not want to partake in anything going on, so I just like sat in my room. And because it's such a clusterfuck, I had to share a room with another person.
Yeah,
it was like this 40-year-old dude. I don't know what was up with him, but
something.
Yeah, but divulged. I haven't even I never even told my parents this situation, but me and you sat down and we had a conversation about it. Won't get into all the gory details or anything, but basically I was very, very close to being sexually assaulted by this guy, and luckily a nurse intervened before it was. And mind you, I'm this 17-year-old kid who's probably about 140 pounds.
You definitely don't look like that now. So
how am I going to defend myself against a grown ass man? Thank fucking God that. But it was, I mean, one of the most traumatizing situations in my life. I mean,
that helpless, like
completely, 100%.
Fuck.
And it's something I still hold on to today. I mean, you don't forget that.
No.
And you know, anyone who's ever dealt with a similar situation, they know it's fucking rough. And then went into the military, did my time, and it's just a culture of drinking. It really is. You get off work, you drink. And I was so busy for like my first 2 years and like just a robot that you don't...
In the Marine Corps?
Yeah. That you just kind of go through that. And then once you start to pick up rank, you get more, you know, freedom and whatnot. That's when kind of everything started happening again. And yeah, I kind of fell back into old habits again. Turned into it every single night. You know, waking up at hungover as shit to go PT in the morning, puking out, you know, fucking whiskey and pizza and, you know, off to the side. And yeah. And I actually went through rehab while I was in the military because they're like, dude, you got a fucking problem. And it's just been an ongoing issue for me always, but it was always just I just played the game. I never thought I had issues or anything. I just made excuses for myself. So, of course, did the same old bullshit and talked my way through it and came home. And after my time in the military, got into a relationship, which... Woo! Yeah. Things were great for a while, but they ended up not so good. And yeah, I was lost. I was just lost. So unhappy with myself and just you get out and I was 20, 21, 22 years old and no life ahead of me. I'm like, fuck, I just did all this shit for 4 years and now what do I do now? Yeah. And had some dead end jobs and no structure or anything else in my life and yeah, my last that I talked about in my video was it was 2 days before 4th of July. Dude, I've never been so drunk in my life. Like, I've been,
I think, really... what's crazy about this? I think I just met you around that time.
I think it was probably... it was like 3...
The boat picture.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was... I think we met, like, probably... I was still drinking when we first met. It was probably about... We met probably 3 months before.
I just never forget that because you're like, oh, it's 4th of July. And I'm like, oh, you got any plans? And he's like... He takes a photo because I met Alec through social media.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long story short, he was in the military over in California. His brother was wearing a pair of our shorts, and he's like, "Oh, what is that brand?" And he was like, "Oh, it's Iron Ink, Fitness. Check them out." And then he was actually buying tons of clothes, and I was shipping them to California when I was slaying it out of my house.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things. That's how it connected. And then he Googled, like, where's this brand from? And it said Minnesota.
I was
and he's
like,
like,
no
oh,
fucking way.
I fucking live in Minnesota. I'm coming back home in a month or two from military, whatever. So I talked with him pre-4th of July, and he's like, check it out, post it on Instagram. It was him sitting on a wakeboard boat,
I was like,
wearing one of our shirts.
I was wearing the
so
We Are Alive
was
tank,
like,
and I'm like, what's up? Yeah.
So anyway, I remember that.
But, I called my mom, and I was like, yo, I'm drunk. Come pick me up.
Which most people wouldn't do that, so I give you props on that.
It was, I think I did it pretty,
was this pre-Uber?
I think I did it pretty early in the day where I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't drive. And then things just slowly escalated from there. But I had so many issues that when I got really drunk, I got angry. And the last thing I remember was like sitting in the car with my mom and driving home. And then I woke up the next morning, pissed myself, like you name it. And I just had this sinking feeling in my stomach, like I did something not so good. I walk downstairs. My parents are sitting at the kitchen table, just petrified. Like I've never seen them so mad and upset
and scared,
yeah,
all at the same time.
And we lost something here.
Me.
I don't know what's going on here.
No, my cable popped out. There we go.
Oh, there we go. No, it's gone again. Sorry. What are we?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Back.
All right.
There we go.
Don't touch it. Now we're good.
And just that look on them. And they're like, do you know what you did last night? It's like, no idea whatsoever.
The tension.
The tension's
really
building. Yeah.
The tension here.
There it is.
All right. I think
we good? There.
Yeah.
And they kind of gave me the lowdown. I got extremely violent. Put my hands on my mom.
Oof.
And my mom's this little 5 foot, 95-pound woman. Got physical with my dad. And they called the cops, all that. Long story short, I got rough with my goddamn parents. And that was the moment the light bulb went on. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know. Yeah, it was my eye-opening moment. And that's it. I haven't had a drink since. And so there's a lot of other things that happened before that as well, but that was just the final. All right, if you don't do something now, you got two options. You can continue the way you are, or you're gonna either end up dead in jail, or you're gonna kill someone, or you can figure your shit out and make something of yourself.
Did your parents help you with that, or did you kind of tell them later that day that you were gonna deal with the problem?
I think I had to work that next morning, so I actually went to work.
Oh God!
Yeah,
you must have felt like dog shit.
It was so bad. I've never felt so shitty in my life. And then I got home, and I didn't talk to him because I was so ashamed and I was so disgusted with myself that I didn't talk to him at all. And then the next day, I didn't sleep that night, and I was just thinking, and I drove to Vault the next day, the gym, and I was sitting in the parking lot, and I was just like, and I remember I did a mass text, like my mom, my dad, my brother, both my brothers, my sister-in-law, and I was like, I'm done drinking. And I basically wrote a novel saying I'm sorry. But I was like, I'm done drinking. I'm not going to drink anymore. And I don't think when I first said I was going to like get sober, I don't think a lot of people they're like,
they probably don't believe you.
You're not gonna do it.
And it probably was a couple times maybe.
It's been multiple times.
I'm done drinking, and then people do it again. I'm done drinking.
Yep. But it was. I was like, I can't. I'm not doing this anymore. I can't do it. And that was it. And it was crazy, thinking, people like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, here we go again. Yeah, okay, this will last all of 2 weeks.
Were your parents support, like, did your parents, like, did they feel like kind of like their hands were tied at this point with all the shit you've done? They're kind of like, I just hope he pulls through this. I mean, because they're not like, you need to go to AA and whatnot. You know what I mean?
I think it was a mixture of both. One, they're like, you need to do something.
Yeah.
We've been, like, I've put my parents through the ringer. I've done so much nasty shit. And I could tell it was like, this is it for them.
Yeah.
Like, you either need to do something or, we just gotta cut ties and go about our business. But they're like, my parents have always been, I have an amazing family. They've always been extremely supportive, and they're like, we'll help you with whatever you possibly need, but you need to do it. You actually need to do it this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't need help. I was like, I know that I can't do this anymore. Yeah, I'm I need support and all that, but it was to the point for me, it was so bad that I was like, I don't need to like work a program or anything. I don't need, all that. I just knew that this was it, and I'm done. And that's kind of how it's been. I've obviously, learned ways of coping and all that shit and whatnot, but I personally haven't like worked a program or anything like that. Not saying like A is bad or anything. I mean, if it works, it's not something that I needed, because I knew in my mind that I'm done. This is it.
I think it's interesting because I've heard people say, like, they look at you and they're like, well, he's, and a lot of people say this, and of course a lot of people go the negative route, right? Yeah. They're like, yeah, man, well, if you don't get professional help, well, you're going to relapse. And I was like, you know what? I don't believe that. I feel like it's whatever works for you, right? And it can be AA, it can be a friend, it could be an experience, it could be listening to a podcast. I mean, who knows, right? But I feel like as long as it works for you and you're doing the right, or not even the right or wrong, but just steps in the correct direction, things are getting better in your life.
Yeah.
Then you're on the right track.
Well, this is my AA.
Totally.
Like this brand.
Yeah.
And then we've talked about it multiple times. It's funny how everything kind of, once I was like, all right, it's time for me to, work on this problem. Everything slowly just started evolving, where I got involved here, and it wasn't even like really an involvement or anything. It was just kind of like hanging out and getting to know you and Mandy and everything. And then you brought me into the mix with Throw the Fight and everything. We went and did the festival, and then from there it's just been like every show, helping out and all that. But this has been my therapy, my AA. Awesome. And this is, you and the guys and everything. This is what saved my life. 100%. There's no question about it whatsoever, is having this in my life. This is what did it for me. And like I've said multiple times, like if this didn't happen at that same time and I didn't get involved, I don't know where I'd be today. And it's crazy how things work out. But
I think that's like, I think the interesting thing about what you're saying too is that people go through life, if it's with a substance, abuse, or if it's a mental issue or a depression, or you're just sad, you're in a funk or whatever, finding outlets that, like you did. I mean, it was a process. Like, you didn't just get it overnight. No, and the thing is, I feel that's what people need to understand, is that this isn't like, if you do this AA program, you're guaranteed sobriety. Yeah. It's just not, that's not how it works. And I think, that's with anything in life, though. Like, this correlates with anything you do. Yep. It's like, if like, you were at that all or nothing point where, like, you knew if I wasn't sober or went that route, there is no other option for Alex.
There wasn't at all.
In your mind, you registered that, you took note of that, and you stood by that. So far you have, and you've done a great job with it. But I feel that a lot of people, they feel they can, they can tiptoe, and they can kind of like, they don't stick with it, Yep. And I feel that's the problem. And obviously a psychological thing, like, could be something with the alcohol as a depressant. With when you drink it, it does something with a chemical imbalance. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. But I think that it's way more common. Well, I know it is more common. And it's fucked up. Alcohol is a depressant.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So it's like, to me, people do it as a social thing, but I'm like, there's other things that are typically a little bit better than alcohol. And I mean, you see it, man. I've seen when people get drunk,
they become different people. Some people
they get sad too. There's like a lot of emotions come out.
Oh yeah.
And I just feel like it's funny, just because society makes it illegal, you can buy over the counter, it gets the okay pass.
Yep.
But then, something like marijuana, for example, has nothing near the shitty effects of alcohol, and it's now just slowly getting legalized in certain states. It's like, it makes no sense,
And I think it comes down to, for me, it's self-discipline and self-will.
Yeah.
It is. You have to want to. You have to want to change. Because no one's gonna do it. It's just anything, like anything in life. No one's gonna fucking do anything for you.
That's right.
If you don't do it, it's not gonna happen. And that's what it's come down to. And I'm a firm believer in, no one wakes up in the morning and is like, I'm gonna be a fucking alcoholic someday.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna be a drug user someday.
Right.
There's always an underlying reason for people who start to have these issues. And mine was anxiety and depression. And I self-medicated with alcohol. It's just that was the way I did it. And there's
the coping
always
mechanism.
It was my coping. It's the way I coped, and it's the only way that I felt okay. Even though by me doing it,
it made it worse.
It made it worse, and I had these destructive behaviors, but I didn't think that way.
Right.
And it all comes back to anxiety and depression. And I know that so many people have issues with it, and it just, no one fucking talks about it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why?
Well, and even like from like a guy that I guess you would say just doesn't have, I guess, a substance issue or anything. For myself, it's more like, I have a food problem with pizza. That's my problem. That's my substance.
Don't we all?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I feel like AA though, like just as coming from my point of view, I feel it has a really negative persona. Because they paint that picture like, it's like you feel like you're, and I mean, if I had a drinking or, drug problem, I would try to get some, help or whatever. Because I think all the people that do that for a living and try whatever they can to help in these programs, that's amazing.
They're incredible people.
Yeah, incredible people. They have the patience.
Oh, it's unreal. Yeah, it's crazy.
So, but for me, though, I think society, or like the society norm, right? We've talked about this stuff, is that they look at like, oh, AA, it's like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay to have something wrong, because, and then if you look at the person that's thinking that, you're perfect?
Yeah.
I guarantee
they got
there's
fucking
a lot
issues.
of issues you got. So I think it's just perspective of what people look at issues, right? I just think it starts with getting rid of society norms and breaking those, to then those barriers come down and people are like, hey, I was in AA, it helped me out, it did a great thing because it opened this, and this door, and now I'm doing this, and it's all positive stuff. And I feel that that's the issue. Another huge issue is just breaking those norms and saying it's okay to have problems.
Well, yeah, and you think it's crazy to think the amount of people that do struggle from some sort of issues, and
I would say everybody does.
Oh yeah,
it's not like some. I think
I kind of want to jump in here and I think there's a stigma with therapists too, and getting a therapist.
For sure.
And I don't think that personally there's anything wrong with that. You have a firm belief in what you were just talking about. Yeah. I have a firm belief in that. I think everyone in the world should see a therapist, because I don't think anyone's life is so perfect or going so well that they are to the point where they don't need to get anything off their chest.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing, kind of like with the podcast too, is almost like a way to be a therapist, like have your therapy is like, or working out, or playing music. It's like people can look at that as their therapy, right? I mean, I've worked with actual therapists, and it was a horrible fucking experience. And now I don't categorize it as like every therapist is a quack and full of shit. But the couple that I worked with for certain reasons in my personal life, it was a big, huge waste of money, and they just weren't the right fit,
Well, that's one of the things. You have to find the right person.
And it's going to take a lot.
Yeah.
I realize it's, you'll probably have to go through the trial and error of like it's going to be a lot of therapists you're going to go through.
Yeah, like
therapists are trial and answer. Yeah. I mean, like for me to like counter you, like I had a bad experience with my first therapist, but then I had an amazing experience with my second therapist, and that was all it took. And I
wish I had that second good experience because I had 2 shitty ones. So
but I'm just saying, they're out there, and it's a relationship. You have to work at it. It's not the same as working at it with your partner, but in a way they are your partner, and you have to like come to trust that person, and that can take a while to get out, but you have to, I don't know, I think it's a feeling out process.
Well, and therapists too, what's great about them is they're basically the middleman or woman or the outsider looking in, giving a bigger perspective, because when we have issues or we're in, if it's a relationship issue or substance, we have the fucking blinders on, right? When you have those on, I feel you need that person to be like, dude, you're missing the big picture here. Mm-hmm. This is what you should be doing. And you're like, oh, shit. So that's my thing with, therapists.
Well, I know people who've had a lot of success with them. And my parents who, they had their issues and they saw a therapist who fucking helped save their marriage.
Yeah.
And so I have absolutely nothing. When it comes time to bettering yourself and figuring out your issues, do what's right for you. Figure out, and it takes a long ass time to figure it out. But once you have that, stick with it. Don't question it. Yeah. Do what you got to do if you're having success with something, just stick with it. And it might be with a therapist, it might not be. If it is, fantastic. But do what you have to do to better yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it might be, we were talking about different types of therapy. I share your, passion for hockey. I also grew up playing that, and that was, even today, now I'm, fortunate, and I play in a couple of rec leagues, and I love that, and that really is a great outlet. Mm-hmm. I think we should talk about, fitness, just that in general. That was a huge, I honestly did not start doing fitness things until I was, senior in high school is when I really, actually went into the weight room for the first time, and lifted something heavy, and then I don't know, it works. It felt good, and that was all due to my therapist. They were just like, hey, you should look into exercise and doing this kind of stuff. So I think that's there's a benefit in that, and I think finding your passion, but that's just
and I think we talked about the problems that you've had in your life, and I think that's something that we should, and it's just funny, 2 out of, we don't exactly know your whole history and everything, but 2 out of 3 people in the room right now have struggled and continue to struggle with modern day mental illness.
I kind of had a struggle with obsessive compulsive disorder growing up was my thing, and anxiety, which kind of I feel like goes hand in hand with a lot of things.
They really do.
Anxiety, depression, anxiety, OCD, it's just it's at the root of everything. I feel whenever you have a problem, anxiety is going to be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because you wonder if you're not normal, or if people are going to think you're just a wacko for having something. But I think that the more you wonder if you have a problem, the more common it actually is.
Totally.
So I think what you were just touching on, my whole struggle with OCD, and that's kind of why I saw a therapist for that eventually. And I mean,
look at you now. Look at you now.
I know. Right. No, I was lucky to have that good experience the second time and get better. And so for me, that was my route. But I mean, Jeff, what we were just talking about when you came back was fitness kind of helps me get back into that. And that was something that my therapist suggested for me, and I hadn't really...
Shout out to that therapist.
Yeah, I know. I hadn't really
done hook it up.
I hadn't really done that before.
Yeah, I mean, and for me too, to be honest, I'm 33, so I look at actually when you're talking about this, I do have big stories of, anxiety and issues, but it's funny when you look back, you're like, oh damn, that was anxiety. I had horrible, I think everybody has it to a degree. It's like, they give this kid Adderall because he's a wacko. It's like everyone has levels of OCD and how things are, but it's how you control it and how you can kind of use exercise or therapy outlets to calm yourself down and channel that. Because growing up, I'm from Michigan originally. I moved to Minneapolis in about 3rd grade, and I'll never forget this, is that it was very similar to you with the school situation. I'm the new dude. I don't know shit. I don't know anybody. Just meltdown. Crying. I will never forget this. We had to do, remember DOL and Grow? Or am I dating myself right now?
You're dating yourself.
So it was like a thing where they'd write every morning like a thing on the board, and you'd have to fill in the blanks. And in school, I had almost like anxiety. I was bad at taking tests, and I would like melt down, and just fold. It's like I knew the fucking answers, but I just couldn't write it down, and I always second guessed and
being in that pressure situation.
And this was when I was younger, and being the loner. No one knew me 3rd grade, and I'll never forget it to this day. He got Teacher of the Year award years ago, but he was at Plymouth Creek Elementary, Mr. Hay Bison. Because of this guy, he got me through school. He was that person I held on to, and he was dope because back in the day, Shaquille O'Neal had his own like custom like Reeboks high tops with the pumps. He would wear like polos, jeans, and have like the neon red and black pumps, and he'd like pump. I'm like, dude, this guy's rad. Like, what's up with that? And so he was like, he just like knew that like I was having issues, and he like would stay after class. And he wanted to go home. He had a freaking family, and he waited with me for 1 to 2 hours post being at school all day just to help me out. And then early in the morning, he'd meet up with me. It's like I saw him years later, I think at like Costco or Target. Dude still looks at him. He's like, Jeff? I was like, holy shit. And he's like, wow, you have a lot of tattoos, and you have a lot more muscle now. I mean, granted, 3rd grade, right? But he's just awesome. And because of that guy, and maybe that's because like, Alec, said that we helped him, or I have, and the people that are in our group of friends, he did that for me. And then from that point on, going into high school, I had a different mentality. I was always like, I'm intrigued to meet new people. So in high school, like Mikey B, one of my best friends today, he was kind of in like the pep band, like nerdier group, and he called me, oh, you were with the cool kids. But I'll never forget this, and he brought it up like this was not that long ago. He's like, dude, you know what's funny? He's like, you always hung out with the cool people and stuff, but you always swung by like our wing. We had sections of the high school, so A wing, B wing, C wing, D wing.
We had that.
All
so
the cool,
high school,
high school sucks.
So bad.
So high school,
just
we were
designated area.
Oh, dude, it's so stupid. Like after you go get lunch, let's hang out in C wing because that's where all the jocks and like skaters hung out. So I hung out with like skater kids, the captain of the football team, whatever. But I always swung by A wing. That's where like a bunch of the nerd kids hung out. And I was like, yo, what up? And he's just like blown away that I came over and would always say hey to him and a couple other buddies. And it's just like, you look at that now, and it's just, from it, looking back from my 3rd grade experience with Mr. Haybice, and he kind of instilled in me like, it's all good. Like everything, you're okay. You're fine. You just got to get through this and like push forward, and we'll kind of get you comfortable being in a different situation. Now you can throw me in a room with anybody and I don't give a shit. I can hang with lawyers, I could hang with a bunch of punk rock dudes, I can just kind of shoot the shit with anybody because I like to get to know people, and I'm intrigued by that. But that was a huge thing back in 3rd grade of like, you don't know shit at 3rd grade, but those breakdowns of like crippling fear. Like, dude, I would cry.
Yeah, dude.
Cry. Yeah. And it was just like, I'll never forget that. And and that was like my big thing going through school. I do feel, not to like bash the school system or anything, we need a shitload more of that guy. Like, whatever was behind his mindset of like helping people, he got it, and everyone else sucked.
I think we need teachers that give a shit and give a shit about the kids.
Actually, I'll never forget teaching. The woman. Yeah. We had not to get off topic, but the room was a double room, so it had a divider. The foldy doors that divide, right? So Hay Bison was here, and we had Mike would know who her name was because Mike was over in her room. I know Mike since 3rd grade, so she sucked. She was like the devil. I was like, horns coming out. She's just a bitch. And it's just like, she did that tough love bullshit. And Hay Bison was like, there's a reason why he's got a line to hang out with him and no one wants to hang out with her, is because he's the cool dude. He was the cool guy, right? And so I mean, because of people like that, I look back and go, wow, even though I was such a young kid, 3rd grade, I'll never forget it. I remember I'm 33 now, and I still remember that shit like it was yesterday. So, I mean, it's there's different ways of coping with stuff or trying to break through it. But
well, and just what you said about mental health, I think so much of mental health and a person's mental health and who they become is obviously shaped during when they're a kid, but also through like high school, and that's why. I think that's sometimes an overlooked role. Like, yeah, I get like you're supposed to be learning stuff in school, but it's also shaping you and preparing you how to deal with situations. And when you have good teachers, like you said, it sticks with you. That makes a huge difference coming from, someone who went to just like a school where they're collecting a paycheck and they just don't give a shit.
Yeah. Because that guy cared, he affected me for the rest of my life. And I was in 3rd grade and I'm talking about him as a 33-year-old man.
Yep.
Well, it just goes to show
clearly shows you that that's it.
I can tell Mrs. Cherney, 4th grade for me. She was fucking awesome. And then, I can tell you, Mr. Washington, 6th grade. I remember my teachers. Like, the really good ones stick with you.
Mr. Movahill, 6th grade.
Yeah.
Dude, he was badass. You know what he did? He had cigarettes in his drawer.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And we were like, yo, we should take him one down. But he was, it was tight.
God.
Dude, he had holes in his jeans. He was like that biker, like badass dude. All the chicks wanted him. That guy was rad. 6th grade. Mr. Movahill, dude.
That really shaped you. That's how you got the whole idea.
Dude,
like,
he was a stud. Yeah, he just all the girls like, oh, Mr. Movahill. Dude, he had the rip, like kneecaps exposed, just didn't give a shit. By the way, I gotta go my lunch break, have a cig. And he rolled them in his shirt.
Oh, dude,
winner,
winner.
Dude.
That's awesome.
Girls were on that. But yeah, so like having good people, like he was such a great person. And that's the thing is they understood. They were just going to a different. They were like going to a different way. Like they understood people better. And it's like, man, it sucks that out of all these teachers we got about 2 good ones in this whole school system.
Yeah.
So
I think it's I mean, part of that also is due to the funding. We should be spending a lot more, I think, on our school system. But also, just like, back to mental health, tying this all in again, I think that there should be kind of like a required mental health class. I said that, something similar at the beginning of the episode, I think. But just teaching kids how to deal with situations. And I think having...
Life, you mean?
Yeah, I really do.
AKA life.
Oh, again, I would love to do an episode about this. I could talk forever about it. But just, why are we doing classes with, calculus, which you're probably not going to use, rather than classes on how to handle a breakup, which you're probably going to go through fine.
Well, that's the problem so many, young people they have a hard time at that age. Like I did. Because your brain isn't fully developed until you're 25 years old. No. And then you have these detrimental things going, well, at the time you think they are, these life-ending experiences, and you don't know how to deal with it.
Oh, I farted one time in class, and I thought I was going to be laughed at forever. Yeah, people didn't remember it the next day. It's just, it teaches you how to deal with situations.
I feel bad for the person sitting next to you.
Yeah. It was a pretty nasty fart.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Nice.
Yeah. But no, it's just teaching kids how to deal with situations is just so important. And adults are still learning how to deal with situations. How to manage themselves and
I think it's more like a common sense. Like if you structure the school system for people to be. And this is with the mental health aspect, more structured to not what we've been doing for the past 30 fucking years. People would be doing a lot better. Like, when you interact with a human being and this happens, like, that should be a test, not, this is a rock. This rock was dug. It's like, dude, great. History is phenomenal. And I love that, where we came from and all that stuff, like, people that fought for our country and all that stuff we do need to know and keep that intact.
I believe that.
But, like, when it comes to common sense, like, interacting with another human being, and now with social media being so prevalent in everyone's life, is like, courses should be directed towards that.
Well, common sense and mental health. And, what does it go to show you? I mean, all the awful school shootings that have been happening recently.
Right.
I mean, these are kids literally in school who go to that school.
Right.
A lot of the times. I mean, granted, there are situations where that isn't the case, but, kids come to school with guns, and these are kids that aren't getting help. And I think people are just now starting to talk about it more and more and be like, oh, mental health, but it's really linked to, you know, gun violence and everything else. These are, you know, kids and, you know, adults who let themselves get too far down the wrong path, and that's because, you know, as a society, I blame kind of society's fault that we're shunning it when it is. Be.
It's exactly
100%.
Oh, it's because he plays Grand Theft Auto. Nope. Sorry,
there's always an underlying case.
Yeah, it's because something else is going on. I mean, that just blows my mind. It's always let's point fingers and not accept, okay, this is a mental health issue and let's try to resolve it.
Well, no one wants to get to the root of the actual problem.
Right.
Or, you know, like we also said at the start of the episode, kids, you know, don't know how to deal with the thing. But, you know, I think that in high school and college especially, I think, you know, that's probably to the point where people should be able to provide assistance or, you know, do some talking. And if someone trusts you enough to tell you that they're having an issue, don't shut them out, I would say that, because that takes a lot of, you know, guts for that person to come forward and be like, hey, man, or, you know, I'm going through this.
Sure, yeah.
You know, they're probably not looking for sympathy. I think they're actually telling you that, you know, they'd like a sounding board. And that's one of the best things you can be, is a positive sounding board and knowing when to get help. But, you know, reiterating, we're not, you know, on the show, Jeff, Alec, and me, we're not therapists or medical professionals and doctors telling, you know, this is what needs to happen. These are just our opinions. But
at the end of the day, though, if you've lived it, you know, I mean, it just shows the three of us here, completely three different individuals, have gone through some type of anxiety, OCD, depression in very different ways, but we all have. Three different dudes, three different situations, but we all had some type of level of it. So I think everybody, I'm not just saying like you're this person, I don't have any issues, no OCD, no anxiety. I think everybody does. It's just, you know, in your situation, how did you, you know, you're walking, or we're living proof that there are ways to successfully beat it. But, yeah, I don't know.
Well, and no, I think we should talk about getting help. You have to want the help. And I think that's something we really need to touch on and make a priority here, because there's difference in, you know, you yourself, Alec, had just said you knew the things to say, right? Yep. You went through the motions. Oh, this is what they want to hear. This is the box I got to check. Great. There's getting help, and then there's wanting help. And there's a very big difference.
There is, and I'm a firm believer in no one will ever make a change in their life until they truly want to. And you know, there's, you know, a lot of people who do. They have substance abuse issues or anxiety, depression, and other people around them see that they are having that, and they're trying to, you know, push help on them. And until that person wants the help, and they're not going to make that change. And so, yeah, it is. I'm a 100% believer in you have to truly want to make a difference in your life to finally actually do so.
It kind of ties in. This actually might be a good closing question. We'll see kind of where we're at. But do you think people can change? I hear that question a lot.
Ooh,
and I think that's a deep question. I think obviously they can. I think you yourself just went through like a really good transformation. You just made it to a year and a half sober now, which is freaking awesome. And that's not a stage that a lot of people get to. That shows drive. But I'm kind of curious to just go around, Jeff. I mean, do you think people change?
I think we're wired not to. I think people don't want to, because we want to we're creatures of habit. We want to kind of do the same shit over and over. I think, I mean, he's living proof. You know, we are living proof that you can make change. But I think every way to make change is completely different. Like, some people have to hit rock bottom. What is that level of rock bottom? Oh, you killed someone in a car wreck. Okay.
Or you got drunk at a dinner.
Yeah. Like, you got drunk at a dinner and you embarrassed the whole, not only your family, but the restaurant. You can't come back. Or you're at a friend's house and, you know, someone had to kick you out of their house and like, dude, you're not welcome back in my house again because you're a dickhead or whatever. Yeah. Also, you know, losing friends. I mean, whatever the case is, I feel the shitty part is that light bulb like Alec had that goes off. Doesn't go off for everybody. And the sucky part is like...
And isn't it shitty that it takes a light bulb to go off? Like, it really takes someone to get to that point?
Yeah, it does. Because, again, I don't really know the answer why that is, but I think we just try to fight it. You know, it's like you don't... it's like, I think deep down you want to say like, I don't have a problem, I'm fine.
Oh, right? I did that for years.
I'm
always
fine,
did that.
I'm fine. But it's like, dude, nah, you got a problem, you know? But it's also then what's your justification of you have a problem, and I look at you and I go, no, you have a problem. So everyone's opinion's slightly different, right? So I think that's also too with how you want to change. Like, are you committing full on 110%? You'll do whatever it takes to change, or are you doing the tiptoe, like you're dipping your toe in the water? Like, I'm gonna be sober for like 60 days, and I'll do one night of drinking. It's
because you see, so many people go back and rewind, and or they relapse, or the change isn't real, and that's the thing. Because I would say that I think I'm a firm believer people can change, but it takes a lot of work at the beginning.
So much,
I'll admit, I'm really cynical at the beginning. Someone says to me, like, I'll change, and we'd be like, well, like, action. Prove it.
Not a lot of talk.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk. There's just not a lot of doing.
And
that's the thing. I mean, I'm curious, Alec, what your point is on that as someone who has gone through that change and acted on it. I mean, do you feel cynical about other people changing, or what is your view on it?
Obviously, I'm a firm believer in people can change. It takes a lot, though, and it's a full on. You need to take the time to work on yourself. I've been single for almost 2 years now, and I know I would never be able to make the progress that I am if I had to manage a relationship as well. You have to full on put 110% effort into, okay, I'm going to make a change in my life. But you have to do it in so many different aspects of your life. It can't just be, for me, it was, I need to get sober, but there's so many other things that I have to take care of because of me getting sober. I have to mend relationships that I fucked. I have to become healthy. I have to do something to make progress in my life professionally. There's so many aspects of it. You can't just be like, oh, I'm sober, I'll fucking check that box.
I'll
get that done. You have to, if you truly want to make change in your life, you have to hit every angle of that situation. And I don't think a lot of people will do that. But there are, and it takes self-will, and it takes self-discipline into not only wanting change, but realizing the areas that need to be changed.
Yeah, and not to sound, there are, obviously, people do change. I see it, all the time, like, especially in fitness. Like, that's something we see a lot of at Ironing Fitness. Is, people going through these incredible transformations who put words into action. And I think that's, everybody talks, and I love we love air quotes on this show, and making gestures with our hands that you can't see if you're listening. So I just
because you're on the YouTubes.
Yeah, but now we're on the YouTube. So no, but it's just it's about actually acting on something, and people procrastinate and say, I'll do it tomorrow, next time. Later.
It's funny though, it's crazy how, like, with mental illness, substance abuse, and things like that, that's exactly correlates to doing what you want to do in your life. And what are you doing? It's like, I've heard so many people, well, how did you do it, man? Or like, not bashing questions that people say, but like, what do I do? It's like, do something. Like, do something in the right direction. And just anything you do is going to kind of inch you towards something positive.
Something that you can have small victories in.
Yeah, small victories
and
lead to the big
holding on
one.
to those,
But also going back to about his relationship thing, dude, that's a whole nother episode. But like, people think like they need this other person to, like, I'm like, no.
Oh, no.
The smartest thing he did was not be in a relationship. And for me too, being in bad relationships was a huge hinder of
I'm with you there.
This fucking brand. Like, from not to talk about just me, but looking at when you take things like a relationship, and I got rid of it and it was toxic, it's like, dude, I can kind of move this thing along in a positive direction. And it was a toxic thing. For me, was I had the blinders on and this wasn't taken off, and then got rid of that, and now things are good. And it's less talk, more action, more doing leads to all of a sudden all these doors start opening, and holy shit, which equals positivity. Positivity makes, people always focus on money. Well, guess what? When you're positive and more shit starts happening, your bank account gets a lot fatter.
Dude, positivity breeds positivity. It does. You, as just being a positive person draws those other positive people into your life.
Well, emotions are infectious.
Oh,
just
yeah,
like being,
yeah.
I call it the Eeyore complex. Eeyore,
yeah.
The Pooh. If someone is a downtrodden, like, you're gonna sink to their level.
Yep.
And I had that. I've hung around people that made me like that. I'm like, dude, this isn't me. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I got to get out of this rut. But like, again, it was up to me to go. Enough is enough. I've got to go this direction because this direction that I'm currently on is shit.
Yep.
And even though I wasn't substance abusing, same thing for him. You know, he was on a substance thing. For me, it was bad relationship. It's just you're going down the wrong path. Then it was like that breaking moment where you go, the light bulb went off for me. You know, I'm done. That's it. Best thing I ever did in my fucking life.
Yeah, so. I think throughout this whole episode, I just want people to know that, you know, you can if you're struggling with issues. Regardless, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be anxiety, depression, chemical abuse. It's any type of issue in your life that you can get out of it. You can 100%. It's up to you though. And there's still very, very good people out there that you can reach out to. And I'd like to think that we're people that, you know, if you're having a hard time, you know, hit us up, let us know. And
it's part of the thing that you've been doing. It's like, we'll pay it forward.
Yeah, and it's you know, I'm no expert by any means, but I can always, you know, lend an understanding ear. And yeah, you don't have to feel stuck. You don't have to feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel because there is. You know, regardless of how far it may seem. There's always going to be one. The day's going to end and another one's going to fucking start, and you have a chance to reboot and move forward in the way you see fit. And I think, don't settle for feeling like shit because there's ways to get out of that, and there's ways to live a life that you truly want to live. And I think that's, you know, something that we, you know, just want to stress for sure.
Well, I think it's cool too how many people have, you know, through the brand have hit me up personally, have hit Alec up, or talking about Alec, or, you know, just asking questions. You know, I mean, we're normal people just like everyone else. So it's like, you know, he's gone through it, and I know his DMs are flooded with people asking like, hey, you know, dude, like, how the fuck did you do it? You know, what did you do? What's the magic trick? And it's kind of like then when he tells them, actually there wasn't. Oh, and by the way, I didn't go to AA. They're like blown away. But it also gives them perspective of like, that could be this. He's my Mr. Hey Bison. Do you see what I mean? For like the people that are DMing you or DMing me, they need that person. Like it's almost like proof. Like you're doing it. But then how'd you do it? And you're kind of like, you're there. You know, we're there for people. So, like, if you guys have any questions, you know, hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up. Go to ironingfitness.com. You know, always hit up our email. It's podcast@ironingfitness.com with topics. I mean, it can be some heavy shit. Yeah. And, you know, we'll keep everything full disclosure between, you know, me and Alec and whatnot. But you know, we're here to help at the end of the day. And if that's with anything from like, this is a little more serious topic, but I feel it's, you know, and you can spin it however you want, but it ties into business. It ties into just life in general. So we all go through it to some degree, as you heard on this episode, 3 different dudes, 3 completely different situations. But I just think we're kind of sick of people brushing over these kind of topics, and that's why we're doing this. So please hit us up if you guys have questions or help or need help, and we'll do the best we can. We'll keep it real with you, and that's all.
Try to play our part in helping out in any possible way that we can.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's the same.
Any closing comments?
Yeah,
Colin?
Find your Mr. Hey Bison. That's the closing comment.
Oh
there.
Fuck! Did it die?
I think it just went out. So this is actually a perfect. No, our camera just went out.
Can we keep filming it?
What if we want to keep? Well, we're ending the episode right now.
Yeah, but now they're gonna not get that on YouTube.
Well, they're not gonna get the very 30 seconds of filming.
Yeah,
but no, I think you can follow Alec and Jeff on Instagram. Obviously, Ironing Fitness at ironingfitness.com. You can follow me if you want. I'm happy to lend understanding ear to
podcast at ironingfitness.com.
Podcast at ironingfitness.com.
Send your questions, guys.
and I think that's what we're saying. Once you want something, the tunnel gets a lot brighter.
Yeah, it does.
And then the light gets closer.
For sure.
And that's I think
I say this. I've said it multiple times, and I think it's the it's kind of my life motto, and what I live by is as long as you have someone to love, regardless if it's a family member, a significant other, a pet, whatever, something to do with your time, whether it's work, a hobby, anything like that, and having something to look forward to, that you will never go wrong, and you will always be able to get out of your hard situation, and that's kind of what I live by.
It's good words.
Thank
All
you.
right,
I appreciate
it. I like
it.
it. No,
appreciate
that's a good. Yeah, I appreciate it too. It's a really good closing comment. So, all right, guys. Well, that's that kind of wraps it up for this episode. Sorry we cut you off there for the last 2 minutes, but we're looking forward to getting your questions and hearing more feedback. Again, this is an organic process, and that's why we do this. We discover topics along the way, and it's just always fun interacting with you guys. So, we'll see you for the next episode today.
Thanks, guys. Later.
Cheers.